Have you ever wondered what happens when you stop praying? When the whisper that rose to the heavens day after day simply falls silent? Life goes on. The clock doesn't stop, the world doesn't collapse immediately, but something subtle begins to shift. It's like a room where the light has been slowly dimmed. At first, you still see. You still feel the presence of whatever was there. But over time, the shapes blur, the space grows cold, and you begin to grope, lost. Prayer, often silent and imperceptible, was the invisible thread that connected you to the divine. When it ceases, this thread doesn't break abruptly. It simply stops being pulled. And it is in this silence that emptiness begins to set in, not with a bang, but with an uncomfortable absence, hard to name. Without realizing it, you begin to lose the comfort of spiritual routine. It's not just the lack of words spoken in a low voice, but the disappearance of that moment when the soul surrendered. The day's problems seem heavier, as if there's no place to pour the pain. Decisions become more difficult, feelings more confusing. At first, there may even be a false sense of relief. Now I have more time, less guilt, more freedom. But soon the echo arrives, a silent restlessness that arises when the spirit loses its anchor. Like a river beginning to move away from its source, you feel something essential slipping away. And even surrounded by voices, friendships, and activities, there's a growing inner isolation. Not because God is moving away, but because you've stopped calling him. As the days pass, the impact spreads like ripples on a calm lake. The spiritual sensitivity that once vibrated when hearing a song or reading a verse begins to dull. What once touched your heart now goes unnoticed. You realize you no longer feel the way you used to. You don't cry, you don't get emotional, you don't react with the same fervor. It's as if a thin layer of dust has covered your soul. The absence of prayer, more than an omission, is a loss of connection. It's a failure to converse with the one who understands even the groans we can't express. And when difficult days arrive, because they always do, there's no longer that reflex to run to our knees. What was natural now demands effort. What was spontaneous has become distant. In daily life, changes become more evident. Small conflicts feel like mountains. Irritation grows easily. Anxiety finds its way. Without realizing it, you begin to seek new anchors. Habits, distractions, even addictions, all in an attempt to fill what prayer silently sustained. It's at this moment that many ask themselves, "What happened to me?" But the answer lies not in the world around us, but in what you've stopped nourishing within. Prayer was more than a conversation with God. It was the daily reminder that you are not alone. It was the mirror of your soul before the Creator. Without it, reflections become blurred. And even if you still attend church, sing hymns, or read passages, there's a real absence when prayer falls silent. And then comes the question of faith. Does God still hear me, even when I don't speak to him? The distance you feel isn't because he's turned his back, but because you've looked away. Faith, once alive, becomes just a memory. The flame slowly fades. And with that, spiritual relationships suffer too. Conversations that were once deep become superficial. Gatherings that once filled you now feel empty. Even your spiritual identity begins to fade. It's a silent, almost imperceptible, yet devastating drift. You don't have to abandon God to distance yourself from him. You just have to stop speaking to him. And when prayer dies, so does part of our intimacy with the Creator. But there is a way back. No matter how much time has passed or how distant you feel, God doesn't measure distances with time, but with the disposition of the heart. The first step doesn't need to be perfect, long, or eloquent. It just needs to be sincere. A whisper, a thought, and "I'm here again." Prayer doesn't need formulas, but truth. Acknowledging the journey, including the silence, is part of spirituality. Sometimes stopping praying comes from pain, exhaustion, frustration. But there is room to begin again. And in this return, each word spoken becomes a brick of reconnection. Every sigh is heard. Every tear is welcomed. There is no shame in beginning again. There is grace. Re-establishing this bond isn't about returning to the way things were, but opening yourself up to something new. Perhaps your faith needs a new format, a new routine, a new purpose. Prayer doesn't have to be a rigid ritual. It can be a conversation during your commute, an intentional silence in the midst of a rush, a moment of gratitude upon waking. The important thing is that it exists, because when we pray, we remember who we are, who He is, and what exists between us. And even if you're weakened, prayer doesn't require strength, it gives strength. When we resume it, we not only reconnect with the divine, but we reconfigure our vision, our peace, our center. Perhaps today is the right time for this reconnection. Don't wait for a perfect occasion. Don't wait to feel worthy. Pray as you are, even if it's just a help me, because it's in this simple gesture that something grand happens. You reconnect with your essence. You return to the point where your soul is still. Prayer is more than words. It is presence. And where there is presence, there is life. If you've stopped praying, know this. It's not the end of your journey. It's just a pause. And all of heaven is waiting for the sound of your voice again.